All right, y'all, it's time for a very difficult GRE text completion. Here you go. Take a moment, read through this sentence, plug in an answer for blanks 1, 2, and 3, and then stick around as we work through this question together. Here we go. For these multiple blank text completions, you typically want to identify the easiest blank to start with and work from there. To do so, you want to read through it and make sure you can establish who or what the sentence is about and what kind of descriptive information you get about that thing. For us, we know that the who is the authors. And then as we read through these different blanks, you might have noticed that you get quite a bit of information at this first sentence. So this is actually a good place to start. For some text completions that are multiple blank, it might be better to start with the second or third blank. For this one, it's the first blank. So we know that the who is the authors. Now, what do we know about the authors based on this first sentence? Well, they often sacrifice personal beliefs, remaining apolitical or not taking a side on a political issue, something that might be controversial. And they do that in order to blank controversy and remain palatable to a broader audience. So that is the idea that if they aren't coming up with controversial opinions, a larger audience will find them appealing. Based on our context clues, we can plug in a word like avoid for this first blank. The first option, disregard, that means to pay no attention to something or to ignore it. And they're not ignoring controversy. They're not pretending it's not there. They know it's there and they are trying to avoid it. So disregard might be tempting, but it's not what we're looking for. Our next word, skirt, that actually works pretty well for us because in this context, if you're to skirt something, it means you're trying to avoid it. So for example, if you're trying to skirt an issue, it means you're trying to avoid talking about it. You know it's there, but you're trying to get around it without having to actually participate. So skirt works for our context in a way that disregard will not. And finally, we have stoke, and stoke is to add more energy to something or to encourage it, and that is definitely the opposite of what we're looking for. So that is out. And now we're ready to move on to that second blank. This might indeed be a blank position, considering that some readers bristle when an author whom they typically enjoy injects overtly political themes into a novel. I'm going to stop at that dash and really think about what this part of the text completion is communicating. Let's establish what this is referring to, because that's important. This is describing a position. So this must be a position that authors take, which means that this refers back to avoiding controversy. So avoiding controversy might be a blank position. Let's focus in on what follows that blank. Considering some readers bristle, as in they really don't like it, when an author, whom they typically enjoy, and that's really just fluff, so we don't need to pay attention to whom they typically enjoy. We can just focus on what the author does that makes the readers bristle. What makes them bristle is when an author injects overtly political themes into a novel. Check out the tie back here. Earlier on in the sentence, we were told that authors try to remain apolitical because overtly political themes are what cause the readers to bristle. So that means avoiding controversy must be wise. With that, we can check out our answer choices for the second blank. The first option, precarious, that is when something is not tied down very well, it's not very secure, it's likely to fall or collapse. Nothing like wise, our prediction. Misguided, also nothing like wise. Our last option, prudent, that does mean wise, or taking the appropriate action for the situation. So that looks pretty good. We're gonna hang on to that and move on to our final blank. So far, we've established that these authors avoid controversy, which is wise because it might make readers angry if authors are showing their true feelings in their novels. Now for this final part, we have to think about what follows this dash. After the dash, we have even themes they might in principle blank. So they is referring back to our authors. And we have a little bit of a contrast here because we're talking about how the authors might feel in principle. So how they're feeling internally versus externally, the things that they believe in. The word even signals that the example is going even further. How might this example be going further if we're talking about authors avoiding political topics? Well, they might even avoid political topics that in principle they in fact believe in. Since principles are things that we fundamentally believe in, it makes sense that believe in works for that final blank because we're saying authors are going to avoid controversy, even controversial themes that they might in fact believe to be true. Going to our final answer choices, we have disavow, which means to refuse to to acknowledge or accept, and that absolutely is not supported by context clues here. That is followed by espouse. Espouse is when you support particular opinions or belief, and that does work pretty well here because they are avoiding themes that they might even believe in. Our final one, question, that is the opposite of our prediction for the blank, which is to believe in, so we know that one is out. And there we have it. Skirt, prudent, and espouse are the 3 words that correctly complete this text completion. If you got all 3 of these correct, nicely done. This one is challenging. If you did not, no worries. This is a tough one. Not only is the vocabulary in the answer choices higher level, but it is a long, complex sentence, a lot of commas, really dense, higher level vocabulary in the sentence, as well as those answer choices. All of those are elements that make this the very difficult text completion that it is.